Hi guys, welcome back to the garage. I got a request recently to show how I go about getting my core lambs produced for my bamboo back and belly bow builds. And it's the same process or same piece of equipment that I use to taper the bellies of any bamboo backed ipe or hickory bow or anything like that. This is my thickness sander, and I'm really kind of feeling like the question has more to do with how, in terms of equipment, I go about making it, and not so much me running a slat through my thickness sander and just saying, well, there's how I get my my laminations. And so I'm going to take just a real quick video and kind of go over some of the little pieces about how I created this thickness sander for myself. I built it myself, but there were some videos that I watched to help me get to this build, but they missed, or there's a lot of things about this particular build that weren't necessarily in those videos, and I'll try to give you some of the most valuable information about, like, the circumference of the drum, where I get the sandpaper from, the motor, the pulleys, etc., and how you could make your own thickness sander if you choose to do so. And I would tell you, kind of like I described in prior videos, that this right here, this one piece of equipment saved me so much time in terms of being able to build a lot of bows and get a lot of experimentation done with different tapers, different thicknesses, different lengths, different types of woods, different backings, etc. Without this, I would have been working on those projects for far longer periods of time than with it. So I'll take a real quick tour around this piece of equipment. There were some guys, like I mentioned before. I'll try to link the descriptions of those videos, or link the videos in the descriptions of this particular video. Some of the stuff that I watched to get not only the drum sander, but then the sled that I use that gives me the thickness tapers that I'm looking for, and etc. So I'm going to grab the camera and just kind of give you a quick tour of this particular drum sander that I made. So I'm not going to go through every little detail about the construction of this particular tool, guys. You need to build a structure on which to place it. The motor mount, or the motor, should be mounted underneath your work surface somewhere. The depth to which is going to depend entirely upon the length of the belt that you choose, the size of the pulleys, and etc. This particular motor, let's see if I can focus in on here. If you look at the RPMs, it's an 1800 RPM motor. 1800 RPMs is an awful lot to be throwing at a piece of wood, and that's why I ran a 4-to-1 ratio. 4-to-1 ratio on my pulleys. So the bottom pulley here is a 1-inch pulley. Top one here is a 4-inch pulley, and in the end result, what that gives me is a drum that runs at 450 RPM. So arguably kind of slow, but that is the speed at which it runs. All right. The electrical, the electrical outlets run to a switch here to turn on the motor. I have a little dealie here that works a actuating tabletop, so I can raise and lower this table, and it is on a piano hinge on the back side here. You can see that's stuff that you can find in the videos that I'm going to link, so I'm not going to go into a whole lot of description about how to create a table that rises and lowers. Just know that it can be done. So that's what that does. and that's the machine itself. Now, one of the most difficult things I had to deal with was how to create this drum. Okay, the discs are MDF, and they were just kind of cut close to. You don't have to be super accurate with these circles, right? You want to drill your hole, get as close to the circular shape that they need to be without cutting inside your line, right? And these are, as far as diameter is concerned, okay, I measured them earlier on, but the diameter on these is exactly 5 inches. They're 5-inch discs. Okay, they're glued and screwed together in through here. I think I ganged them 3 at a time, glued them up, and then screwed on these last 2 because I needed to cut this little key out right here, which is what holds the sandpaper in place. Now, when you get done putting the semi-round pieces of MDF on, you put a piece of sandpaper on your surface here and you raise it to your drum and let the sandpaper work your drum into its circular shape. All right, so that's how you get a perfectly round drum, is you sand it from underneath on your flat bed. All right, so there's how that works. Now, if you're running a 5-inch disc here, I made it specifically for a 4-inch by 36-inch sander belt. It's the same belt that I use on this sander right here. All right, so here's the belt. Now, you have to, and forgive me because I'm having to do this all one-handed again, you have to cut across it so that you can wrap it in this spiral shape around your drum and fasten down the one end, wrap it across the way here, and fasten down the other end. And to get this cut just right, it's 15 3/4 inches. All right, so now when I was trying to figure all of this out and do the math and the pi times the circumference or the radius times pi, blah, blah, I don't know. I had to revisit high school to make that happen. But I knew at the time I only had to get it right once, right? I only had to get it right once. So I didn't bother remembering. I don't have all of the specifics on the math and whatnot, but what I can tell you is 15 3/4 inches across the diagonal length of that 36-inch belt that's 4 inches wide will get you from one end to the other. All right, so that's save you a little bit of brain damage on that end of things. Okay, so that took me a little bit of time to figure out, I'll be honest with you. All right, so then that is the sander itself. And I know that I've really glossed over all of the construction processes like bearings and, you know, the rod in here and all of this stuff, but that's stuff that will be covered, you know, in those videos that I'll link. The next piece of equipment is this right here. This is the sled that I will use to run. I'm going to take this apart just for a second, but this sled will fit right here, and it will hold my slat right in place. And so I can run it through my sander on a sled. Now, the value of a sled versus just running the piece of wood straight on through, and this fell earlier. So as opposed to just running this straight on through, where you can get a parallel taper, so you're even thickness front to back. On this piece of equipment, you can, with this sled that fits right in here, okay, you can decide, you can get a taper in there. You see how it tapers down as we get closer to the clamp there. Okay, so this would be like a 3/4 inch taper right here, if that's what I wanted to do. Now, I have little pieces of wood here. This is a 0.05 thickness piece of wood. This is a 0.1 thickness piece of wood. And so when I stack these, 0.1 and a 0.05, I get a 0.15 raise on the sled when I put it together. So where we are flush down here, we make our way across here, we're actually up 1.5 inch or 0.15 inches. All right, there's the thickness of our, or that's the depth of our taper right there. Okay, and we will put our slat then right up to that front edge and adjust our clamp to hold it down in place. And we take the whole works here over to the sander and we just run it through the sander, all right, till it's barely taking a little bit off. And once it's done taking that, we'll give it a little more height on the table, grind it until it's smooth again, give a little more height on the table, grind it until it's smooth again, until we're running a continuous grind from the tip up here all the way back to about here. Okay, or whatever length you want to get. So it depends on the length of your bow. Okay, so I think the sled itself is 30 inches long. So I can have a 30-inch taper. And generally speaking, if I set aside 8 inches for my grip area, for my fades and grip, I will not taper that area. Okay, so I figured 30 inches plus 8 inches plus another 30 inches would give me a 68-inch taper. It's the longest taper I can do, just straight up to this edge. And there's nothing that prevents you from hanging this over a little bit. There's also nothing that prevents you from running it a little past. Okay, so 68 inches is pretty much the capacity there, with a little bit of variation to get yourself to 70 inches if that's what you need to do. But here's what this would look like. Okay, so we're fixed all the way to the tip. With the motor running, we would just be sanding, bring it back, sand it, and bring it back. Now, I don't have the means by which, like a regular drum sander, where it'll just feed it all the way through and you just pick it up on the backside. I don't have that luxury. This is what I have to work with, and has done very well for me for lots and lots and lots of bows. For those of you worried about my safety, I do have a cover that goes over the belt and over the top of the drum there, so that I don't get any loose clothing caught up in the belt or anything like that before anybody puts a comment in there that I'm teasing death every time I put together a bow. So I do have safety covers that go in there as well. But to kind of, for the value of seeing the workings of how this operates, I took it off. Hopefully this answers the question that was posted on my video there about how I do my tapers. You know, I'll determine how thin I want it at the far end versus how thick it is at the grip area, and I put that rise in the sled and just go for it. And I will tell you, that is all experimental. I've got a few basic ones that I go to, like that 0.15. I use that pretty regularly, but this is it. So I hope I have explained what it was that was being asked of me. I will again link the videos in the description that I watched very specifically about constructing this piece of equipment. And if you choose to do so, I want to say the cost on this, probably, it was less than $200. So that's a pretty good investment in my opinion. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Just a quick video on a very valuable piece of equipment that you can build yourself. And be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you with my next video.